This week on the Larry Elder Show, brought to you by Yrefy, we address the many lies, distortions, misleading statements given by President Joe Biden in his recent State of the Union speech. And no, it is not your age, Mr. President, it's your mental fitness. All that and more. Now, before the State of the Union speech, President Biden asked actors who've played presidents for advice. What?
I never spoke to so many presidents all at one time. Some of you might know what a big speech like I have to do is coming up State of the Union. Any advice you have for me in delivering my speech?
Well, sir, in my capacity as president, all I had to deal with was a meteor. One of the things that I came out of that with in my speech to people, hope. Hope is the strongest force we have in this country. It is the most useful and the most effective. My advice is just keep telling us how you're working for us and building hope.
Hope? Would this be the same hopeful President Morgan Freeman who once called Mitch McConnell a racist for attempting to make Barack Obama a one-term president? You know, the way Joe Biden made Trump a one-term president and the way Joe Biden is attempting to stop Trump from becoming a two-term president.
The Tea Partiers who are controlling the Republican Party stated, and what's this guy's name? Mitch McConnell. Is that his name, McConnell?
Yeah, Mitch McConnell, yeah.
Mitch McConnell. Their stated policy, publicly stated, is to do whatever it takes to see to it that Obama only serves one term. What is that? What underlines that? Screw the country. We're going to do whatever we do to get this black man. We're going to do whatever we can to get this black man out of here.
But is that necessarily a racist thing?
It is a racist thing.
Is it?
And then there's President Tony Goldwyn.
Well, Mr. President, looking back at my own presidency, I behaved very badly in a lot of situations. In preparation for your speech, it's just there was one sort of piece of advice and that meant a lot to me when I was president. And so I just wanted to share that really quick with you. Tell them that you exist for them. Tell them that they make you a better man. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And also, when I used to give big speeches, I would always wind down with popcorn and red wine. But I know for you that would be ice. Do that with ice cream. I highly encourage it.
Tell them you exist for them. That's deep.
Gunga galunga. Gunga gunga la gunga.
President Gina Davis.
I know from experience, obviously, what a tough job it is. And, when I was president, it seemed like every week there was some new crisis that I had to face.
You did a hell of a job.
Thank you. I do feel I should just point out one thing it always bears remembering: there's no crying in politics.
Well, what I hope is my politics doesn't make anybody else cry.
I hope my politics don't make anybody else cry. No, you can't have that.
And one of you all came over to me, Mr. Blakemore, we got little children. What about the black children in the ghetto? We got to make a future for them. These others will move them out. Move us out, and they come in to compete with jobs, goods, and contracted service. Historian Carl Anderson say that they have a negative effect on the black community. I'm strictly advocating for black people and call ICE on them. Trump, come in here, clean this mess up.
Well, at least he didn't cry. Next, we have President Michael Douglas.
Mr. President, from my experience of being Commander-in-Chief, I learned that having a loving partner changes everything. Love and compassion as a leader are strengths. They're not weaknesses.
Great advice. Have a loving partner.
Yeah. Let me whisper a secret. Don't tell Mommy what I told you.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. He sniffs too many children, that man. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh no, he's done it again.
Now, the very important thing I told my daughter and granddaughters, no serious guys till you're 30.
Okay. No what?
No serious guys till you're 30.
I'll keep that in mind.
And then there's President Bill Pullman, who has some sage advice.
We've had a lot of lines to learn ourselves. It's nice to watch somebody else have to get it all together rather than us, you know. In Independence Day, I had it easy. You know, we just had invaders from outer space coming in wanting to mess with us, and that tends to unify people, you know. And I'm not so sure it was the greatest speech ever, but I did manage to say two things. One is that we can't be consumed by our petty differences.
Can't be consumed by petty differences.
The MAGA Republicans don't just threaten our personal rights and economic security. They're a threat to our very democracy. They refuse to accept the will of the people. They embrace political violence. They don't believe in democracy.
As President Biden last night, his first public political event in a month. Earlier at a private fundraiser, he went even further. What we're seeing now is either the beginning or the death knell of an extreme MAGA philosophy. It's not just Trump. It's the entire philosophy that underpins the I'm going to say something. It's like semi-fascism.
Yeah, he has some strong language. The president calling Republican ideology, quote, semi-fascism.
President Biden had a new attack on Republicans during a fundraiser last night. It's not just Trump. It's the entire philosophy that underpins the, I'm going to say something, it's like semi-fascism. That's a quote.
President Biden drawing severe criticism today. He kicked off his midterm push at a DNC event in Maryland yesterday, back from vacation. It was billed as a unity rally. Interesting name because he decided to attack half of the country.
I don't respect these MAGA Republicans. Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans have made their choice to go backwards, full of anger, violence, hate, and division.
Ah, so that's the great uniter.
We will be united in our common interests. And somehow these words became something to remember. So I had the thought, Mr. President, that, you know, when people look at all that you've managed to do, they're going to remember, time will remember always, the importance of your words when you say that thing about there's nothing that we can't do when we do it together. Those are good ones. Best wishes to you, sir.
There's nothing beyond our capacity. I believe that. Hey, come see me in the White House.
Yeah. And if you need heart surgery, why don't you call Neil Patrick Harris? Now let's examine some of the things that Biden said in the State of the Union speech.
In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching. Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th. When insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you were here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War.
Sigh. This is how U.S. Code 2383 defines insurrection, and I'm quoting. Whoever incites, sets on foot, assists, or engages in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or the laws thereof, or gives aid or comfort thereto, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both, and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States, end of quote. Now, neither Trump nor any of the 900 arrested for January 6th have been charged with insurrection, but details.
Yeah, well, for the past year, words like sedition, treason, insurrection have been used to describe what happened on January 6th. Yet, none of the hundreds of people charged in connection with January 6th have been charged with those specific crimes. We spoke with a constitutional law expert to find out why we haven't seen these charges.
Those crimes are very, very hard to prove. They require basically an intent to try to frustrate or subvert the government.
Constitutional law professor Josh Blackman says while the public can debate whether January 6th meets the definition of an insurrection, an act or instance of revolting against civil authority or an established government, the law is much more strict. Blackman says some involved in January 6 may yet see insurrection charges, but it will require federal prosecutors to prove they went to the Capitol building with the intent of overthrowing our government.
I think the government doesn't want to bring a case unless they have a solid argument in favor of insurrection.
Blackman says the same goes for sedition and treason, which requires levying war against the United States, providing aid to enemies, or conspiring to overthrow the government through force or delaying the execution of a law.
A lot of the people on January 6th did not have that intent.
Then there's this one.
That's the proposal. Oh no, you guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion for the super wealth. That's good to hear.
False. According to the Heritage Foundation, quote, those in income brackets earning $200K or more paid more in taxes in 2018 compared with 2017. Those making less than $200K annually paid less in taxes. End of quote. Here's another one.
4 years ago next week, before I came to office, the country was hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century.
But you know, the stock market crash was a chain reaction. It was everybody's business. All those speculators and investors going broke brought down the banks. So they refused to lend money they just didn't have. Savers all panicked and rushed to get their savings out, often in vain. The stock market crash spread to the banks, then to industry. Credit and investment all dried up. Both consumption and production kept on falling. Trying to survive, companies started firing people en masse. By 1930, 9% of workers were out of a job. 2 years later, it was 25%.
And of course, he had to bring up Roe v. Wade.
Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right.
Well, like most Americans, barely. According to a 2023 Gallup poll, 52% of Americans are pro-choice, 44% pro-life, 4% no opinion. So most Americans to Joe Biden means 52%. About the borders.
In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh?
Well, actually, there's no need for Congress to do anything. All Biden has to do is reinstate the Trump policies that he began reversing from day one of his administration.
The whole move to try to come up with something by the administration, and obviously bipartisan, that didn't come until it became clear it was going to be a major campaign issue. And only then did the Biden administration get interested in it. And every time I hear those talking... Hold on, let's be clear here, let me finish first. But every time we hear those talking points that suddenly it was Republicans who ruined the border, that's why people get so frustrated. We know what President Biden said about inviting people in. We know that he got rid of all the things that were keeping the border closed that President Trump had put in. We know that he got rid of all those. So when you say it's not his fault,
that's literally not true. It's literally not true that he got rid of the veterans. It's true he got rid of family separation.
Did you see 7.2 million people come in during the Trump administration? It was a trickle.
He got rid of the policy to tear children out of the arms of their parents. That's true. But it is not true. Some of the other things that have been suggested. Let's be clear. Bipartisan efforts at border reform have taken place in 2015, 2006. I mean, literally since the Reagan administration.
This significant surge coming after President Biden ended Donald Trump's so-called Remain in Mexico policy, requiring asylum seekers to wait there for their court proceedings. Since then, many of those tent cities along the Mexican border have emptied out as people start streaming in. We were there when a bus of 56 asylum seekers arrived at Casa Elitas, a Catholic charity shelter in Tucson. Men, pregnant women, and children stepping off the bus with only what they could carry. This father, who asked that we not show his face, traveled to Mexico from Brazil with his wife and 3 young kids before crossing the border. Would you have tried to do this when Donald Trump was president?
Definitely not. Definitely. We had the chance, you know, the same violence that is going on today was there last year. We used to watch the news, and I definitely won't do this.
So did you come here because Joe Biden was elected president?
Basically.
And no, Mr. Biden, it's not Lincoln Riley, it's Laken Riley.
Not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right.
Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones has introduced new legislation to combat what he says are sanctuary city policies.
The measure comes in the wake of the death of Augusta University nursing student Laken Riley. Jones is leading the effort that would increase penalties for local officials who try to protect illegal immigrants. He blames local officials and Washington Democrats for Riley's death, saying, quote, their policies put the interest of illegal immigrants ahead of Americans. The parents of Laken Riley have turned down an invitation to President Biden's State of the Union address. State Representative Mike Collins had invited Riley's parents to the president's speech tomorrow. Collins says, quote, as Joe Biden comes to Capitol Hill to defend his atrocious record, the seat for my guest will remain vacant in honor of Laken Riley and all Americans who have lost their lives to an illegal alien criminal.
And of course, the trans community has fundamental rights.
Pass the Equality Act. And my message to transgender Americans, I have your back.
Now, privately, some doctors with Doctors at the World Professional Association for Transgender Health are concerned with gender-affirming surgery on young people. Privately. Here's what a panelist from that organization admitted to.
And so one of the things I do is I'm sitting with the youth and their parents, and I say, oh, well, so tell me more about what you know about that medical intervention. And kind of like what Dan was saying, you know, children and young adolescents, we wouldn't really expect them. It's kind of it's out of their developmental range sometimes to understand the extent to which some of these medical interventions are impacting them.
We do it, we try to talk about it, but most of the kids are nowhere in any kind of a brain space to really talk about it in a serious way. That's always bothered me, but you know, we still want the kids to be happier in the moment, right?
And I appreciate that much less with a 9, 10, or 11-year-old who's starting puberty suppression, and like Ren said, if they continue on, then and I mean it's like developmentally not in their space to be able to have to think about that, and it shouldn't be, right? And so I think it is a real growing edge in our field to kind of figure out how we can approach that. I'm definitely a little stumped on it.
Do you really want Biden having your back?
Thank you.
And then there's book banning.
And stop denying another core value of America, our diversity across American life. Banning books, it's wrong. Instead of erasing history, let's make history.
No, Mr. President, books aren't being banned, just not available in school libraries if the material is age inappropriate. As the founder of the liberals of TikTok attempted to explain to a journalist.
Would you say that you're a free speech supporter?
Yeah.
So how do you square the sort of being this free speech supporter with wanting to ban literature?
What kind of literature?
Any kind of literature. I mean, I would think that
what kind of literature am I trying to ban?
Oh, I thought you were just trying to say you've made an effort to get books removed from schools.
What kind of books?
books dealing with LGBTQ people and sexual
No, that's
education.
not what I said.
Oh, so you're not trying to get any books banned from school?
That's not what I said either.
Okay, why don't you explain to me how you're thinking about this?
You just accused me of wanting to ban books. What kind of books am I trying to ban?
You tell me.
I'm not trying to ban anything.
But you're not trying to ban any books.
Who said I'm trying to ban books?
Are you trying to remove books from libraries?
From public school libraries.
Okay. So how do you square your sort of notion of free speech and free expression and allowing all of that stuff with wanting literature removed and wanting access to information removed?
What kind of literature?
You tell me.
Porn. Gay porn.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And what do you consider gay porn in these books?
So you want to see it?
Are you talking about the stuff that you've tweeted, basically? You consider
yeah,
it
like there's
inappropriate?
pictures of like dogs and like how to have gay sex with like naked people and people masturbating and stuff. Yeah.
Did you?
Like pictures of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. And
Yeah.
I went to public school. And we had a sex ed class in public school where we were shown, information about sexual health and, sex and masturbation and things like that. I'm curious about your own education. I mean, was that something did you ever go to a sex ed class, or is this all sort of new to you where you're sort of learning about how this works in public schools?
I don't live under a rock.
So you did have sex ed classes when you were growing up?
We had some kind of education, yeah.
Uh-huh. So you do think it's important for children to have education, sex education?
Not the way they're doing it in the public schools.
Uh-huh. How are they doing it?
They're giving kids porn and telling third graders that they should masturbate.
Here now, a few passages read by some ladies who generally don't use language quite like that.
For the past several weeks, debating a bill to impose criminal penalties for exposing children to obscene literature in schools and libraries. The debate has featured some spectacular testimony from concerned citizens reading out material that they objected to.
Are you going to eat her? Yeah, I'm going to eat her. Hey, yeah. Do you even know how to eat? Papa Gaines never sat you down, said, son, one day you're going to have to eat the. No, but he did teach me how to eat a bowl.
More explicit ratings from concerned citizens at public meetings.
The boy just talked soft to her about how good she looked and things like that, and she grabbed his with her hands and started moving it.
It felt so good, so good. I don't know how people do anything but have sex if they are adults and don't have school or parents.
Billy was on top of Valencia making love to her. While Billy was making love to her, Billy made a noise like a small rusty hinge. He had just emptied his testicles into Valencia.
Now before this, I'd my share of and had gotten plenty of jobs, every kind of job. But the only sex I'd had was with this junior who was in love with my and he just hopped aboard.
And I pull and I until he grows and he makes sounds that means he likes it. And I keep going and going. And when he says, I'm going to, I don't pull away. The of him is warm and and tastes like thickened sweat.
You can eat a girl and put some air inside of her, or you can f her too hard.
My only challenge is Brian, who is my friend who likes to. Son, I don't have time for that. I got like 20 over here that I need to eat. Is that right? I'm on deadline.
I didn't have a on anymore. That might sound weird to say. It's also complicated and tragic, and life sucks. Just want to mention, I've never said the F word ever in my life before until just now. So
Now on to voter suppression. Code word, voter ID.
59 years later, their forces taking us back in time. Voter suppression, election subversion, unlimited dark money, extreme gerrymandering, because it is the most pernicious thing. This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. I mean, this is gigantic.
Lord knows that black people are incapable of getting voter ID, right?
Do you have an opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad.
I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far as say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Here's how white liberals feel about the inability of blacks to obtain voter ID.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet, Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works. A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data. For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed. I also think there's a repression of black voting with how if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to vote and everything. And when you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the African American.
And here's how blacks feel about their inability to obtain voter ID.
Do you have ID normally? Do you carry ID around?
Yes, I have state ID.
Do you carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any black person who doesn't carry ID?
No. Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID?
That's a lie. Why would they say that?
Do you have ID?
Yes.
Because I have my ID and my friends have their ID, so we know what we need to carry around.
Everybody that I know have ID. That's one of the things you need to walk around with New York with, ID.
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Is it a weird thing to even say that?
Yes, it is.
What is this, some type of trick candy cameras?
I know, right? That's the only thing I brought with me.
Those are legit IDs.
Next up, the lie about the effect of preschool.
Well, studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school, go on to earn a 2- and 4-year degree, no matter what their background is.
Really, Mr. President? You know, Tennessee enacted a preschool program along the lines that you and many Democrats want. Here's what the libertarian Cato Institute wrote about it, and I quote, "The Tennessee program has much in common with Biden's plan. It's a full-time 5.5-hour per day, 5 days a week program with certified teachers whose pay is linked to elementary school teachers. It meets 9 of the 10 benchmarks for high-quality pre-K from the National Institute for Early Education Research. But students who participated had worse results than students who did not. Any gains made in the program disappeared by the end of kindergarten. From 3rd grade through 6th grade, students who participated had worse results on state assessments than students who were not in the program." It's a bit of a problem. Despite what President Biden and his allies in Congress would have us believe, there's no single definition of high-quality preschool. A 2019 summary of research on early childhood acknowledged there is surprisingly little consensus on the specific characteristics or combinations of programmatic features that are most essential for ensuring the effectiveness of ECE programs. That's a mouthful. In other words, there's no guarantee they're going to work. President Biden, Cato continued, and Congress should take a page from the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. The federal government has no business imposing universal preschool rules on states and families. As the Tennessee example shows, doing something can be worse than doing nothing. And when bad policies are implemented at the federal level, the impacts are felt nationwide. End of quote.
If I were smart, I'd go home now.
Next, Biden mischaracterized what the Alabama court said about in vitro fertilization.
History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker from Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child, but the Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state.
No, it did not shut down IVF treatments. Quote, "While this ruling doesn't make IVF illegal, it does cast uncertainty over the future of the procedure and raises questions about how unused embryos should be handled." End of quote. And almost immediately, the Republican-controlled Alabama legislature passed bills to protect IVF. This is from Reuters, and I quote, "Alabama's Republican-led legislature on Thursday passed bills aimed at protecting the IVF industry after the state Supreme Court ruled that frozen embryos should be considered children, prompting at least 3 Alabama providers to halt the fertility procedure. A bill passed the Senate 34-0, with 1 member abstaining after the House measure passed 94-6. End of quote.
The job. I don't think he can win the job because it's a grueling thing to run for president.
It's very hard.
And everybody said, yeah, well, he can't do what he did last time because there was a pandemic, stay in his basement. Yes, he can. No one gives about that. No, the chattering classes will talk about it, and the public will be, what do I care? I don't want to watch this all the time anyway. I don't need to see him every day. He doesn't need to go around the country. Stay where you are. Every once in a while, make a speech like this. Yeah.
Instead of trying to refute all the too old to be president slams, Joe must embrace them. Stop with the I'm sharper than ever. Nobody's buying that. Don't try to deny the age thing. Lean into it. Lean in. Lean in like you're eating soup. Just admit it. Say, yes, I'm bad with names, and I walk like a toddler with a full diaper. I say he should let his old fart flag fly.
Other than that, I kept waiting for Biden to say, get off of my lawn!
I've fallen, and I can't get up!
And the media gushed over Joe Biden's performance. He was clear. He was aggressive. He was sharp.
Actually, I should quote him and just say maybe I should go home right now because I think what he did was spectacular. He did it with vigor. He did it with vision, with patriotism. And I think it was one of the finest State of the Union addresses I have seen, and I've seen many.
Almost sharp enough to stand trial rather than be characterized as an elderly old man with a poor memory.
How does that make you feel?
Now, what makes Yrefy so different from other investments, you ask? Let's quickly break it down. Yrefy offers a secured, collateralized portfolio with a strong fixed rate of return up to 10.25%. I am an investor. Now, there is no attack on your principal. If you ever need your money back, you can get it. You're in control. You can let your investment compound daily or take income, whatever you choose. There are absolutely no fees, and an investment in Yrefy is an investment in America's future. Simply call 888-YREFI24. That's 888-YREFI24. And when you call, you will not get a sales pitch. Just the info you need to see if Yrefy is a better investment option for you. Or log on to investyrefy.com. That's invest, the letter Y, then REFY.com, and make sure you tell them Larry Older sent you. By the way, I am a co-founder of Old Glory Bank. Get a free copy of my new book, As Goes California, My Mission to Rescue the Golden State and Save a Nation. Open an account in Old Glory Bank, and when you get your debit card in the mail, activate it, and you will get a free copy of my new book, As Goes California. Just go to oldglorybank.com. That's oldglorybank.com. Now, during the State of the Union speech, Biden dared use a term that Democrats and the media find offensive, if not racist. He referred to illegal aliens as illegal.
An innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals?
Now, the next day after the speech, he realized that he offended his base and attempted to fumble it back.
Do you regret using the word illegal to describe immigrants last night, sir?
Well, I don't regret it. Technically not supposed to be here. An illegal.
He'll get back here, you pass. Can they stay to winter?
Now, this liberal YouTube influencer, without realizing it, all but made a pro-Trump campaign ad. Other than the lie that Trump wants a Muslim ban, Trump simply wants travel restrictions on the same problematic countries that Obama and Congress identified and the courts found legal. Other than that, this could be a pro-Trump ad.
And here are the first 15 promises he has made if he is reelected. You may have heard of Project 2025, but this is from Agenda 47. And you can read all of these on his website. First, he promises that he will carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in history. He will also ask for the death sentence for anyone convicted of human trafficking. He will close the Department of Education and return all education standards to the states to decide. He will put prayer back into school, and he will criminalize any race-based advantage programs. He will end the Affordable Care Act. He will ban gender-affirming care for adults and children, and he will ban any federal dollars from going towards gender-affirming care, which means anyone with government-provided health care will no longer be able to access gender-affirming care except for Viagra and Cialis. Those will still be available. He will propose a constitutional amendment that gives a term limit to Congress. He will deploy the Department of Justice to investigate the Biden crime family and any of his adversaries or political rivals. He will immediately pardon all of the January 6thers, and he will create a task force to investigate anyone who arrested, charged, or imprisoned a January 6er. He will increase the penalties for underage criminal offenders, strengthen immunity for police officers, and deploy the National Guard to patrol woke cities. On day one, he will reassess our participation in NATO and says that every European country needs to pay the United States for protection. He will also restore the wonderful travel ban for Muslims coming to America. He will build freedom cities. This is 10 new cities built on federal land. He will award them to areas with the best development proposals, and he will prioritize moving young families to these freedom cities. He will kill all e-vehicles and e-vehicle legislation, seeking to replace that with the development of a flying car. He believes that we could create a car that vertically takes off. What? He will remove all of the limits on American natural gas exports and drill baby drill for oil domestically. He will impose a tariff of up to 60% on Chinese imports. He will extend the 2017 tax cuts and drop the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15%. Okay. He will push Congress to pass legislation that would give every American the right to concealed carry anywhere at any time. And he will revoke any gun restrictions or legislation that seeks to inhibit people's ability to own guns that's been passed in the last several years. He will demand that Europe pay back all the money we gave Ukraine, and then he will use all of that money to recruit for the American military. And he will take billions and billions of dollars from private university endowments by taxing, fining, and suing the universities. He specifically names Harvard in this one. And then he will use that money to create the American Academy. It is a free online college that will be free of wokeness that he will force employers to recognize as a bachelor's degree equivalent. So that's Agenda 47.
Let's get this mother crock!
What's not to like? Liberals are still having a hard time putting their arms around the unanimous Supreme Court decision, striking down the Colorado court for attempting to exclude Trump from being on their primary ballot. Here is the renowned legal scholar, Whoopi Goldberg.
Welcome back. You know, the thing that bothers me about this, and I know it's probably the right decision, but I don't like that we've normalized this man.
Yeah.
It has really irritated the poo out of me.
Yeah.
What is that plotting? Well, this is an app where they plot the human feces that are found on the streets of San Francisco. And you see how almost the whole thing is covered because human feces is now a fact of life.
Biden is now showing an interest in the borders. Just a little late.
Raul Ortiz served as chief of the U.S. Border Patrol under President Biden.
I've never had one conversation with the president or the vice president for that matter. And so I was the chief of the Border Patrol. I commanded 21,000 people. That's a problem.
I'm old enough to remember when Democrats cared about the borders.
Those who enter the country illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law, and they are showing disregard for those who are following the law.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers.
I think we can enforce our borders. I think we should enforce our borders.
If making it easy to be an illegal alien isn't enough, how about offering a reward for being an illegal immigrant? No sane country would do that, right?
Got a couple of different issues. We're talking about, do we have a commitment to secure the border? Yes. What are the options that we have available to us? Let's make sure they work. Because we do, while we need to address the issue of immigration and the challenge we have of undocumented people in our country, we certainly don't want any more coming in.
In approaching immigration reform, I believe we must enact tough, practical reforms that ensure and promote the legal and orderly entry of immigrants into our country.
People who enter the United States without our permission are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same as people who entered the U.S. legally.
To have a situation where 40% of the babies born on Medicaid in California today are born of illegal immigrants creates a very real problem for the state, which is in deficit.
Look, of course you can enforce the borders.
Let me finish.
I agree.
To have 17% of our prison population at a cost of $300 million a year be illegal immigrants who come here and commit felonies. That's not what this nation is all about.
Do we have a commitment to secure the border? Yes. What are the options that we have available to us? Let's make sure they work.
We all agree on the need to better secure the border and to punish employers who choose to hire illegal immigrants.
That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before.
And the Commission sees no justification to the continued entry of unskilled foreign workers unless the rationale for their admission otherwise serves a significant national interest.
But at the same time, along with that, we have to beef up the border. So there's some point at which you say, now you're here, and these are the people that are here, and these are the other people that aren't here. Because otherwise you have people who are legally trying to get in, and they're on waiting lists to get in, and then other people are getting in illegally. It doesn't make any sense.
No sane country would do that, right?
I continue to believe that we need stronger enforcement on the border and at the workplace.
All illegal aliens present in the United States on the date of enactment of our bill must quickly register their presence with the United States government or face imminent deportation.
That means a workable, mandatory system that employers must use to verify the legality of their workers.
We will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace, as recommended by the Commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan.
I urge the Congress to adopt tough policies needed to verify employment authorization.
When we use phrases like undocumented workers, we convey a message to the American people that their government is not serious about combating illegal immigration. If you don't think it's illegal, you're not going to say it. I think it is illegal and wrong.
If you break our laws by entering this country without permission to give birth to a child, we reward that child with U.S. citizenship and guarantee a full access to all public and social services this society provides. And that's a lot of services. Is it any wonder that 2/3 of the babies born at taxpayer expense in county-run hospitals in Los Angeles are born to illegal alien mothers?
So, that's why we need to start by giving agencies charged with border security new technology, new facilities, and more people to stop, process, and deport illegal immigrants.
We certainly don't want any more coming in.
A biometric-based employer verification system with tough enforcement and auditing is necessary to significantly diminish the job magnet that attracts illegal aliens to the United States.
By cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens.
We also need to crack down on employers that are hiring illegal immigrants. One of the things that's happening, and I've talked to people in towns in our state where this is happening, is that it almost creates a shadow workforce where employees are illegally employing these people. They are sadly willing to take jobs that are more unsafe for less wages, and then it hurts our other workers that are here in this country. So bringing this out of the shadows and making it clear who's legal and who's not legal, beefing up the border security is where we need to head.
Right now, we've got millions of illegal immigrants who live and work here without knowing their identity or background.
But we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop.
When immigrants are less well-educated and less skilled, they may pose economic hardships for the most vulnerable of Americans, particularly those who are unemployed or underemployed.
We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become immigrants in this country. Let me repeat, we need strong border security at the borders.
We are also a nation of laws.
I think we can enforce our borders. I think we should enforce our borders.
No, Mr. President, it's not that you're 81. It's not your age. It's your clear, obvious, diminished mental fitness. And it's only going to get worse. This, for example, is Thomas Sowell at age 81. Your age, Mr. President.
Oh, it's not even remotely true.
All right, explain. Explain.
Well, first history. There were more people, I believe, living in Manhattan prior to the rise of rent control and prior to the rise of government housing projects. My gosh, at one time, the Lower East Side of New York was the most tightly packed place in the world.
And this is Thomas Sowell when he published his latest book at age 92. That's 10 years older than you are right now, Mr. President.
Yes, it's because that's proven to be a politically popular thing to do. But in point of fact, one of the things that's mentioned in the book is a study that was done by the New York Times, of all people, some years ago, where they tried to show the 10 poorest counties in the United States. And they mentioned which ones they were and so on. It turns out that 6 of those 10 counties had a population that was from 90% to 100% white. Now, in the New York Times, they didn't mention the race of the people, but once they told me the counties, I looked it up. And in fact, I followed the average income in those 6 counties over a span of 50 years. And in all those 50 years, all 6 of those counties had a median income lower than the median income of Black Americans.
No, it's not your age, Mr. President. It really isn't. This has been the Larry Elder Show. And remember, don't forget to order my new book, As Goes California, My Mission to Rescue the Golden State and Save the Nation. And as always, remember, we've got a country to save. Out.